Marc Poulos, thanks for joining us on the All Night Channel. One of the major issues that's happening is trying to get a capital bill for about the first time in 10 years or so. We're still looking for funding models. That's kind of going on behind the scenes. What is the operating engineers, what is the position on this capital bill?
Yeah, so the capital bill, we think that there's obviously got to be a focus on road, bridge, mass transit, as well as a vertical component of this. Our major focus right now is road, bridges, and mass transit. That's been severely underfunded, both in the last capital bill and IGN and previous capital bills. It's been underfunded in terms of long-term sustainable transportation funding. We haven't had that either in this state. 29 states have raised motor fuel taxes and other related fees. It's time that the state of Illinois steps up and does the same thing, indexes those things to inflation so that it keeps up, so that we don't have to keep coming back every 10 years just to fund things for things like deferred maintenance.
When we talk, there's a phrase going out, or a couple phrases going out, horizontal capital and vertical capital. What do those phrases mean?
Yeah, so horizontal capital is essentially what I just mentioned, which is roads, bridges, mass transit, and then also involves waterways, airports, those types of transportation systems. And then vertical is really K through 12 education systems, higher education, not-for-profit hospitals, state facilities, those types of things. So it's really buildings versus roads. Vertical being the buildings and the roads being the horizontal portion.
And because the state passed a constitutional amendment that says transportation money has to go to transportation, some of the money that might be from the gas tax being raised would have to go to transportation issues, is that right? Whereas if we wanted to build a building, money would have to come from somewhere else.
Yes, that's exactly right. So a couple of years ago, we were a large part of passing the constitutional amendment, Safe Roads Amendment, that lockboxed or protected the transportation funding, motor fuel taxes, license plate fees, essentially anything that's related as a tax, a fee, assessment on transportation has to be used for transportation. So, over the years, we've either raided the road fund, right? Under the Rounder administration, we had taken a single $500 million out of the road fund to plug the fiscal budget hole for 1 year. Those are large sums of money. I mean, the motor fuel tax itself as it stands today only raised about $1.2 billion a year, and we're taking nearly half of that out to fill a GRF hole. That's why we're in the shape that we're in today.
What we say operating engineers, what actually does that mean? What jobs do operating engineers do?
Yeah, so operating engineers, Local 150, there's 8 different locals around the state. It's primarily heavy equipment. So we've got several different apprenticeship programs, but the mechanics, the gentlemen that go out there and actually work on the equipment, as well as those guys that run the big bulldozers and the big cats and backhoes and bobcats and all those types of things that you see moving along the roadways.
And how many members do you have? And if this passes, is there a demand for new jobs? One of the things I know, so many baby boomers and all are retiring. A lot of industries are looking for new people. Is that true in your industry? And if we get a capital bill, is this going to expand your ranks?
Yeah, so this capital bill or long-term sustainable transportation funding, it's a big deal for the entire state of Illinois, but it's a much bigger deal for downstate Illinois. Upstate Illinois, you've got the tollway system, right? They have multi-billion-dollar projects going on right now. You've got the O'Hare International Airport. You've got Midway. O'Hare's got multi-billion-dollar projects going on right now. You've got the city of Chicago with the People's Gas or Integris Energy, an accelerated main replacement program. Billions of dollars being spent on that. Nicor Gas doing an accelerated main replacement program. Billions of dollars being spent on that. Where the jobs are lacking is everything south of I-80. I mean, they rely on the Illinois Department of Transportation funding, local roads and streets funding through the local motor fuel tax and the state motor fuel tax in order to create those types of jobs. So, there's not a huge demand up in northern Illinois, meaning, unemployment's low for the building trades or the construction industry generally, but it's very high south of I-80, and certainly as far as Springfield and south, it's even worse. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a need for those types of jobs. I mean, for the operators, Local 150, covering the northern 25 counties in Illinois, got 23,000 members, 16,000 of them active in the state of Illinois, the others along the Mississippi River in Iowa and 14 northwest counties in Indiana. These gentlemen are pretty busy, right? I mean, those benches will be virtually empty this year with the work projections, even without a capital bill. So it's not necessarily about the job creation through this bill as much as it is really about safety. I mean, we've literally got Lakeshore Drive shut down. You got 87th Street Bridge actually collapsing. You've got a full depth hole down to the rebar over the Wren Lake, on the Wren Lake Bridge. You've got lane closures on I-55 of other full depth holes. I mean, these aren't just about creating jobs. I mean, this is really about just safety of the motoring public.
Yeah, that's a good point, because as we said, it's been, I think, 10 years or so since the last capital bill. And obviously, again, the climate we're in, things wear out, rust happens, and you need to do repairs. Do you know how much of a backlog of projects there are awaiting, either in terms of numbers or dollar amount?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact amount, but it's like the road, bridge, mass transit. So the horizontal portion, I think it's somewhere around $39 billion. Then you add in the vertical components of this. I mean, we literally top over $100 billion just in deferred maintenance, right? I mean, you look at things like Metro, right? That transit system. I mean, you're operating off of track systems that we literally light fires on the switches during the polar vortex just to free up switches. You've got rail cars and engines that we're getting that are from California, so they're already used. We just refurbish them because we can't afford new ones. That's just the transit system itself. Then you take the roads and bridges. I mean, what we need to focus on right now is we need to fix what we have, then we can focus on building for the future. But right now, we haven't even fixed what we've had before we can start building for the future.
Has anyone said a number? Senator Menard, said in a press conference recently, whatever the number ends up being, we're not going to be able to afford everything that people would like to do. Behind the scenes, do we even have like a ballpark figure of what's being discussed? And that would be financed over multiple years, like a 10-year period, am I right?
Yeah, it depends how you look at this. I mean, we're very focused on a pay-as-you-go type of a system. So for roads, bridge, and mass transit, we've got a bill, House Bill 3233. It's in the Senate right now. That particular bill raises about $2.44 billion in long-term sustainable pay-as-you-go funding. There's no
244 billion?
2.4.
Oh, 2 point.
Yeah, so over a 10-year period, right? It's roughly a $24 billion horizontal program, and that's in perpetuity. It doesn't just last for 10 years. It just depends on how you look at it. That's forever, right? That's a massive influx of money to that type of a system. On the vertical side of things, sure, you have to be more focused on kind of sort of the short-term deferred maintenance needs, raise some capital, bond things out, look at it over a horizon of roughly 10 years, bond it out for 20, come back, right? I mean, it's a little different on the vertical side. There's no real revenue source other than the general revenue fund. The reality of it is the state of Illinois has never funded capital through its general revenue fund like a lot of other states do.
So as we close out, again, I think obviously both sides want a deal. What's your projection? Are we going to get a deal this month?
So I would say on a large-scale capital bill that involves horizontal and vertical, I would say I'm a fair weather fan of that, whether or not that's actually going to happen. I think in terms of some type of funding, whether it be specific funding for some vertical or whether it be specific funding for just horizontal road, bridge, and mass transit, I feel very good that something gets done before the end of May. I think people see it as a critical safety issue at this point. I think they've seen what the polar vortex has done. I think they've looked at Lakeshore Drive and other bridges that are crumbling and actually collapsing, and people are ready to act on that.
Marc Poulos, thank you.
Thank you.
Our officers.
Jeff Berkowitz, thanks for joining us on the Illinois Channel. We're going to take a bit of an in-depth look at the run for the mayor of Chicago. The Illinois Channel, keeping you connected to your state, your issues, your home.